Can you tell us how important and what exactly is emotional intelligence for those that may be jumping on the show right now?
Yeah, so when I started doing emotional intelligence, and you start hearing about that from law enforcement, it's kind of the new catchphrase, but I think it's so crucial. I think for some cops, it's I'm not going to talk about my emotions. It's the same thing with wellness, right? I just rub some dirt on it and move on. It's not really about that at all. Your emotions manifest themselves in physiological responses in your body, neuromuscular, cardiovascular, the chemicals that are released, and all of these kinds of things can do damage to your body. So I think it's important from a wellness standpoint that we teach emotional intelligence. We've all seen the studies. Law enforcement officers, we die at younger ages, heart disease higher, suicides through the roof, and we need to give our folks the skills to be able to navigate that stuff. So the definition, and I talked a little bit about Talent Smart and their book Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is that research is based on Daniel Goleman. So I was introduced to Daniel Goleman a few years ago. I kind of considered the godfather of emotional intelligence. Came out, I think, in 1995 and created discussed the 4 core emotional intelligence skills across 2 competences. So you have the personal competence that is the self-awareness, and then the self-management of that, and then the social competence of social awareness and relationship management. And then what you'll find in that book is the definition. I'm going to read it right here because I don't want to mess it up. Your ability to recognize and understand emotions and your skill at using this awareness to manage yourself and your relationships with others. So going to this class and being able to bring it back to the department and talking about those different core skills across those 2 competencies and understanding, for example, something as simple as self-awareness, understanding those triggers that get you ramped up, right? Somebody does something that really makes you upset and you respond without thinking. We talk about that a lot. And then how do you control that, especially in our environment? Somebody's in your face, somebody says something, those kinds of things. And I think it's so important to teach our folks the skills on how to deal with those kinds of things. The one thing I really appreciated about the training, and I think it's important, especially for law enforcement officers, because it's these emotions that you have are in our DNA, right? We're humans, we're animals. And so we talk about every sensory that you have, everything you see, you feel, you touch, you smell, you hear, everything goes to the base of your brain, right? And then it works its way to the frontal cortex, your frontal lobe, where that's your rational brain. But before it does that, it's going to make this stop at your amygdala, right? In the limbic system. And that's your emotional brain. That's your fight, flight, or freeze. And I think when you explain it to officers to understand, this is not something you can control. This is going to happen. But what we can do is try to train so that you can learn the techniques and skills to recognize these things before you do something, that's inappropriate or out of control. And so these things are going to go to that limbic brain, that amygdala, and then it's going to go up to that frontal cortex where you can actually have rational thought and interpret it. And one example I like is, somebody jumps out from behind the door and scares you, right? And your first reaction is, whatever it is, right? But then you stop for a second and realize, okay, it got to your frontal cortex and you realize, oh, that was my spouse or my kid. Thank God I didn't hit him, right? That's a simple example. But another one I love is, another example is, we've maybe all done this. Somebody sends you a bad email and you start typing mad and then you hit that send. And we talk about a reactionary gap. And the email example I like, because I had a friend that we used to always type it, right? And then say, hey, come read this. You may not want to send that or you may lose your job. So creating that reactionary gap. So you're trying to increase the time before, while it's getting to your frontal cortex, so then you can react appropriately to whatever it is.
Right.
No. Why are you here? You can pass a P test. You have a good resume. You can get a job, maybe not make as much money, but why do you keep coming to work? And then the light bulb goes off for some of them. And then you start going down that road where, okay, well, if you're going to keep coming to work, then quit spewing the venom and let's work on why you're here and let's work on making you successful. But if you're just putting roadblocks up and not doing that, you're setting yourself up for failure on the street. You're going to go out there, you're going to say, what do you want me to do about it, man? You're going to go out there, you're going to create a situation where you're not in control of your emotions. And God forbid you use excessive force or any number of things. So you really have to take these veteran officers and ask them, why are you here, and really self-reflect. And sometimes it's go home and talk to your family about whether or not you can keep doing this. Because here's the thing, the silent majority, as we like to say, still needs us.
Right.
They still need us to go out and handle the calls and be there when they call 911. And if all we're doing is just pissed off because we're mad some legislator, Now, I will tell you the other thing that I've heard, and I think it's a valid concern, is that at some point, when does your purpose, it's not worth it anymore. In other words, yeah, that's my purpose. But as we mentioned, we see officers who get indicted for stuff when they're trying to do the right thing or they make a mistake.
Right.
And that's a hard thing to come back to. And at that point, you have to decide, is it worth the risk anymore? And I need to go, because I can't do police work the way I used to do it anymore, or things have changed and I need to get out of it. But that's a real feedback that I've heard, that it's just not worth the risk anymore for that. So.
Wow.